We don't like something Jeff Bezos is doing? Gumroad, right?
Right.
Which I didn't even know existed until you brought it up. So don't get mad at me.
I'm not.
Approach all things.
With reason.
Reason.
Reasonable.
Dissent.
Reasonable Dissent with the Black Wolf and Copus Malini.
All right, man.
All right.
So how you been?
Could be better, could be worse. Doing the headless chicken dance at work. So
That's your program response when
that's
it comes
my program
to...
response. This could be better, could be worse.
Yeah.
It's my way of saying, look, okay, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good things are; they could always be better, and it doesn't matter how bad things are; they could always be worse. So both are looking forward.
Is that your happy spot? Being
That's my happy spot, is hoping that things don't get worse. I don't like things getting worse.
No. Well, yeah. There's always something going sideways, but I guess it goes back to perspective. So
Yeah.
you wanted to talk about judgmentalism?
Yeah. I thought that that would be a good subject to talk about because I see a lot of it. I see a lot of it pretty much everywhere I go, and particularly as a Christian, I see it a lot in church, and we hear about it, usually lobbed at Christians, and also lobbed at pretty much anybody else who's of a particular mindset. My position about judgmentalism is that, look, until you understand why a person is doing something, you're not in a position to judge what they're doing or who they are.
I feel like whenever you make a stance, it doesn't matter what it is, you make a declaration. I am now an artist.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be judged.
Mm-hmm.
As a father,
Mm-hmm.
you're now in a position to be judged.
Or you're a target for it.
You're a target for it. But what's it matter? I mean, really, when it comes down to it, why is this weighing on your brain? The idea of people judging you.
Well, it's not so much about people judging me, it's about people judging each other. I think that it's because people judging me doesn't really bother me as much for some reason. What I find interesting is, people judge me for smoking cigars. People judge me for they used to judge me for the long hair. And my thing is, you know what? I could care less what you have to say about it. But I see also some people, they can't let anything go, and they have to judge anybody that they see. Anybody they see in anybody they come across. If they're doing anything different, they're all friendly to the face, but then as soon as they turn their back on them, they start judging them. It's like, oh, this guy is this, and he's that, and this, and that, thus. But
it's a great pastime.
Yeah.
One thing that I find, Eric and I, we watch a lot of YouTubers that are also resellers, since we're both resellers.
Mm-hmm.
And
somebody's always going to be talking about how you're doing it wrong.
Well, sure. Most of the people that we watch are fairly positive. I'm just telling on ourselves. Because what will happen is, someone's going through a haul, or they're at a garage sale, and they pass up on something, and we're like, hey, why'd you pass that Teletubby?
Right.
There's some money in those Teletubbies,
Right.
And it's just fun to catch people making mistakes, because it's much easier to, coach than it is to be in the game.
Yeah. But I think that there's a difference between catching somebody who's making a mistake, and then there's a difference between catching someone who's making a mistake and telling them who they're supposed to be and how they're supposed to live. So, like, I get judged for smoking cigars. I know a guy who smokes cigarettes. And I know somebody else, all they want to do is judge that person constantly and judge me about the cigars, judge them about the cigarettes, judge this person about drinking. And it's like, at this point, nobody cares what you think because you don't have anything positive to say.
Right.
And you're probably in a worse position. And in reality, like I said, you don't understand why this person drinks, why that person smokes, why I smoke cigars. You don't understand the why. You're not in a position to judge the who or the what. That's...
Oh, I hear what you're saying. I mean, a lot of people make money on the gossip channels, on judging people, and I find it mostly harmless. As a 37-year-old, I found it very harmful as a 25-year-old. I felt like the criticism of other people that are no longer inside my life stung when I was younger.
Yeah.
Because
And it shapes you.
I guess I had a perception of the perfect person out there. That there were some people, because I didn't know the intimate details of their lives, that made a lot less mistakes than I did.
Yeah.
And walked through life with a lot more certainty than I do. And then I saw the error in their ways. And I was like, there are some confident people out there that believe everything they do is right, but they're often wrong, even though they think that they're right.
They think they watch us get banned from YouTube on this one. They think they shit gold bricks, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And but the thing is, my position is this: if there's something you don't like about somebody, ignore that, because it's not your job to dictate to anybody who they are, how they're to live. That's not our job. We talked about me being a Bible quoting preacher's kid. Here's one for you. Jesus said, "Don't judge, or you too will be judged by the same measure that you use to judge others." Right?
Yeah.
And I think that how that could be broken down is you're judging others by a crooked standard, because you're thinking of it from an incomplete position. You don't know all the details. You don't know all the mitigating factors. You don't understand the why. You're judging somebody from a crooked standard. You will be judged from a crooked standard, and you're going to feel the sting of it. And I think that it's a dangerous thing to be too judgmental on others, because the ones who are really going to suffer the most are the judges. Those of us who judge others.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, I believe in boundaries, and I think if it's just words, I'm old school. Stick and stones might break my bones, but words will never
harm me.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm.
So say what
Not
you
in
will.
2020.
But once you start telling me I can't do something, or you threaten me with violence, or you get violent with me, get in my way, because you think what I'm doing is wrong, that's when we have a problem.
Yeah.
I don't have any problems with many people on an individual basis, but the biggest problems I have in my life right now are with government. And I think
I don't think anybody can go through life without having a problem with the government.
most players in the government I wouldn't have a huge problem with, especially when you go locally and you climb your way up. But that's the problem, is that we don't have a lot of conversations with people in our local government.
Yeah.
So we just hear something that, from the news or from a blue check mark on Twitter, and we say, well, that's the authority voice.
Yeah.
The voice of the authority wants me to behave in this way. And I guess that ruffles my feathers.
Yeah.
The big thing right now with me is vaccination that's going to be distributed through the world, I guess. And
their desire to take away your freedom to choose whether or not you want to take it.
Well, I won't allow them to do that. And so far, nobody has told me I need to take it. There are certain organizations like Ticketmaster that say, if you want to go to one of our concerts, then you're going to have a vaccination. And I won't be buying any tickets.
Yeah, there's now the airliners are starting to require a vaccination passport.
Sure.
If you want to travel, you have to vaccinate. But there's a problem with that as well, is that they're already requiring you to wear a mask on the plane. If you claim an exemption, which the mask orders do make allowance for exemptions, these are for people with a physical or with a medical or a mental disability which prevents them from wearing a mask.
Right.
If you claim one, they're going to send you they're going to have their local doctor or their local shrink examine you and tell them what your exemption claim is. And now basically what you have is you've got these airliners that are basically putting they're basically claiming that they supersede federal law.
Yeah, that's happening. And my solution to that is just not to go on those airlines. And I think if enough of us decide we set a boundary, you're not allowed to require this, and you don't deserve our business, our patronage.
There's a lot of companies that are feeling that sting right now. Lots of companies are feeling the sting right now of people who are going, okay, if that's the stand you're going to take, then you don't get my money.
I see a lot of industries, crumbling. And there's a lot of talk about, the big box retailers like Walmart and Target and the grocery stores that have gotten a consolidation of wealth from this whole pandemic. And then, the middle class being squeezed out. And that's true.
Yeah.
It's true. But long-term speaking, I think that people are going to have to make some decisions. And it's like, well, where do you draw the line? Like, I still shop at Walmart occasionally.
Yeah.
I rarely do, but I drop off my FedEx packages there all the time because it's convenient. But if they tell me you're not allowed to step into our store without
a mask,
the mask part I can deal with because I put it on and I go in, I drop things off, and I leave, and I'm in there for like less than a minute. And I think people like you are smart and brave for just saying, hey, look, I'm not even going to do the mask part. But other people like me that are a little bit more like, hey, look, I got other things to do. This isn't my fight. I'm not going to deal with this one. We're going to draw the line with the vaccination.
Yeah.
If you say, you got to scan my phone to see if I got my shot to get into your establishment, I will not be going to your establishment anymore.
Exactly. And they're already trying to force you to take this contact tracing.
Yeah.
Where they put an app on your phone, and they put an app on my phone, and then if, let's say you are supposedly COVID-19 and I come within a certain distance of you, I get a buzz on my phone. But here's the question. What's to stop them from flagging somebody as COVID-19 if they don't have it? Because they've already shown that their tests are bogus.
Right. Well, their tests, from what I understand,
I know I have some anecdotal stories on how bogus those tests are.
It's like an episode in American Horror Story that I don't know if you ever seen the series, but in the apocalypse season, they're testing for radiation. And there's an apocalypse. There's a nuclear fallout. They're all in the bunker. And the authorities walk over to the participants on the dinner table to see if anyone has been exposed to the elements. And when they get around a couple of people that they just don't like, they turn up the volume on the radiation so there's a higher detection. And basically, if you put it close enough to anything, it's going to say, hey, there's radiation
here. Right, exactly. Because everything has some level of radiation. Yeah.
Right. And I believe that's what's happening with these tests. They're turned up so high that you could put the test in one nostril like Erykah Badu did, and you can test negative, and you can put it inside the other nostril and test positive.
My a good friend of mine, I've known him for over 10 years. He went and in the same day tested both positive and negative.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there, you're going, what is this really all about? Everybody has to wear a mask, and if you don't wear a mask, you're this evil, horrible person from the spawn of Satan himself.
Yeah.
So that tells me that it really has nothing to do with public health. And this again goes back to the judgmental thing. Is now everybody, the sheep have become sheepdogs, or the sheep believe that they're sheepdogs now. And they now are in a position of constantly, they want to make you feel as terrible as possible about existing because you don't have a mask on. right? It's about control. It's not about public health anymore. Because if it was really about public health, somebody's sick, what do you do with them? You isolate the person who's sick.
Right.
You treat them accordingly.
Well,
But everybody's sick? Everybody's presumed sick until proven healthy? If you can be presumed sick until proven healthy, how much further is it before you're presumed guilty until proven innocent? We're that close to it.
if it was really about the health measure, there would be PSAs all over the news and on our phone and during the presidential addresses saying we need to build our immunity up by taking supplements, by exercising.
The CDC is saying that your immune system can't be built up.
Right.
Now you sit here and go, okay, what is it really about? Mm-hmm. What is it really about? It's about that vaccine.
And you start hearing the
What's the point?
mockingbird media, and they're using words like the Great Reset, not just in our country, but all across the world. So that's what it's about. But then you ask yourself, well, what is
the Great Reset?
the Great Reset?
And I think it has to do with moving into, that old phrase, the cashless society. That old phrase has been around since the 60s. My dad wrote a book called Cashless Society, A World Without Money. And in that book, he foretold everything, including the black stripe on the credit card, which back in the 70s didn't exist. He foretold the internet. It was referred to as CENTCOM at the time, or in his book. He foretold a situation where you are allotted a certain amount of money, credits, and that amount of money you can spend on groceries, you can spend on this or that or thus, whatever, but you are allotted the same amount of money every day and nothing bled over to the next day. So, no, you didn't get to save any either. And I think, and we asked the question earlier about what happens when you give everybody just basic universal income. I think that's part of the deal here, is basic universal income, and we're going to see how much you spend.
Well, the question is why?
Balance it out. Well,
and
control.
Yeah, control. And if you think about it, when you have a cash society, when cash isn't perfect, but I can pay you $50 to embroider a shirt for me, and nobody has any records of where I got that $50, how I spent it,
but the
and
government
who it went
does.
to.
Right. And
But
that's
the
thing.
government does not
Well,
if it's
true.
cash. But
It
if
is
you
cash.
go to
But
a cashless society,
Right.
there's records
It's
on everything.
all traceable.
It's all
And that's,
traceable.
That's the point, is they can watch you, they can control you. And here's the question. And this is something
And you also have to look, too, at the debt.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, our national debt is so high at this point, even with the interest rates being as low as they are, which is almost like zero, we are only paying off interest every single year. It's impossible for us to get
that's
into
how
a
debt
point.
is designed, yeah.
Right. That's how debt's designed. So that's where we're at inside this game,
I just saw something.
where people say, hey, money is fake. Why can't you just print more and more and more and more? Because what happens at a certain point is you can't even pay off the interest. And
you certainly can't pay off the interest with fake money that you've been printing every day.
right.
Yeah. I just saw something.
So they need to reset that situation. They don't want to be inside debt. They want to make sure we're inside debt. They want to make sure they know.
I think bankruptcy is a reset. I just saw something, and I'm trying to put my finger on it again. It had to do with, we're already to a point where our movement is regulated.
Yeah.
We're already to a point where our freedom is regulated. We're already to a point where it's not that much further to go before our money is regulated. And then before long, you become a kulak if you have anything at that point.
Well, what is
I
a
think-
kulak? I've never even heard of that term before.
Back in Soviet Russia, when communism became the most prevalent system. And I may be botching the history for those of you who know the history better than I do. But they called anybody who basically owned a business a kulak. And the assumption was that if you had anything at all, you stole it. And so if you had your own land, you had a few cows, and you were able to pay somebody to help you work that land, you stole all of that. And so in a small village, it doesn't take a whole lot to go through and tell people and convince people that this one individual over here who's got all this is a criminal and must be dealt with. And before long, that individual gets shipped out to Siberia and pushed out onto an ice block. And then next thing you know, what was it, like 100 million or 60 million Ukrainians starved during the winter because they had frozen all of their, because they had categorized all of their farmers as kulaks and frozen to death. And you're not that far from, you're not too far from that system when you're already in a situation where you're not allowed to walk around without approval or permission. You're not too far from that.
Yeah.
You know, we're already in a situation now where it's we were just talking earlier about definitions. Mm-hmm. What is the new definition of racist? White. That's the new definition of racist. Right? And if that's the case, that's just the word for kulak.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, you hear all this hatred for the 1%, the viscous 1%. It's constantly changing. Okay? Because you don't have just one group of people that's always there. There's people that's in the 1% and out of the 1%. This year they're in it, next year they're out of it. It's constantly changing. But
I don't know how much I believe in that in terms of the bottom ranks of the 1%. I'd say sure, but in the upper ranks of the 1%, you do have generational wealth, and that is a thing.
Oh, well, no, I'm not denying generational wealth, but
bloodlines that have
right.
Kept wealth within their family.
But
for
any
centuries.
change at all makes something volatile. That's the thing. Any change at all makes something volatile. But here's the thing that you got to consider is that the hatred for the 1%, right? Mm. They're now the kulaks. They're the ones creating your job. Right? And then once you've gone after them, now you got to go after the guy who's hired you. Because now he's your next kulak. Right? And oh, you know what? This guy over here, he's got a job where he polishes and waxes cars. Mm-hmm. Before long, everything he owns is stolen, and now he's your next kulak.
Well, I 100% agree with the fact that we should go after people with any wealth. Like there is the way that our system is structured right now, you would be foolish to not try to have your own business. Mm-hmm. Because
you got to feed yourself somehow.
When our grandfathers were young, mm-hmm. you could get a job with a good pension, mm-hmm. and work that job, retire, buy a home, mm-hmm. and live a good life.
Right.
That's not very.
It's not the case anymore.
Probable for most people. Sure, mm-hmm. you could get a really great union job. There mm-hmm. are some unions that still allow that. You could be a longshoreman, and mm-hmm. they have really great benefits. But for most people, if you work at one of the the main suppliers, you work for Verizon, you work for mm-hmm. Walmart, you work for mm-hmm. Target. Yeah, you're probably going to lose your position. My cousin Natalie has worked for Walmart mm-hmm. for over 10 years now, mm-hmm. and her position was just eliminated. Mm-hmm. She still works for the company, not making the same amount of money as she was making. Right. Mm-hmm. I was working for a smaller business. My position, because of this whole Great Reset, mm-hmm. was basically eliminated. Mm-hmm. So, I had to take half of what I was making prior. Yeah. So, it's fine in terms of, hey, let's not go after my former bosses.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not, try to tell them how to run their business or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not trying to
But you got to start your
take
own.
ownership of your own
Yeah.
life, then you're in a lot of trouble. The beautiful thing is in 2020 that you can do that relatively quickly. There's not as much of a barrier to enter. And I think when most people think about the 1%, they're not thinking about, the YouTubers that are making millions of dollars a year, the Jeffree Stars or the Shane Dawsons. I'm using some...
But there's a problem, though. What they're thinking about is the guy that owns YouTube.
Right.
Now, you go after YouTube, right?
Yeah.
You go after the guy that owns YouTube, right? What happens to the guy who's only making a few thousand a month? What happens to the guy who's actually pushing that attack on the guy that owns YouTube? Is now he loses that stream of income. You have to understand.
How do you? But in your mindset, you're saying
Everything
that
is
you
a
either let
trickle-down
the
situation.
person at the top take as much as they want,
No.
or they're going to take away from everybody else. There was a time where the CEOs of the average business made about 50 times more than the average employee.
Right.
Now it's 5,000.
Okay.
So
and I understand that, but here's the thing.
that's the problem. It's not the problem with the business owner. It's the problem that the business owners are...
You're talking about greed being the problem. And greed is a problem. Yes. But it's not a problem with everyone who's at the top of every business. That's the thing.
Well, find me a business that isn't ran that way, where the CEO doesn't make, compared to like the 60s and 70s, where they made about 50 times more. Find me a major business. Show me Jeff Bezos.
Jeff Bezos, I have an opinion about, and it's not a good one. But the thing about it is,
I'm not talking about the guy that owns a lumber business and has 100 employees.
right? Well, but see, here's the thing: it's again. Remember what I said before about betrayal, right? Betrayal has to betray, and eventually, the guy that owns a lumber business with only 100 employees, eventually he's on the chopping block. He's on the list. The thing is, if you go after on the list of those who betray, we just covered that.
But I'm not talking about betrayal. I think what we're talking, using the word betrayal
You
towards
got to
people
understand something about the
that have a
destructive
problem.
mind. The destructive mind has to destroy.
Well, I understand that. We've had that conversation.
Right.
And I think that somebody that wants to fundamentally change the way that businesses are ran, and I'm not saying necessarily like let's take Jeff Bezos' money. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm saying like let's put him inside jail for crimes against humanity. That's what I'm saying.
Be careful, because my book is on Amazon.
So is mine. I have 2 on Amazon. So, yeah, but that's a problem. Amazon in itself that started off as
It was in the garage.
a book business, and they always have these silly stories about how it didn't have no seed money from the government.
Yeah, right.
There was seed money from the government.
You don't get that big without seed money for the government. From
Right.
the government. But here's the thing: is that
You know,
I think that what ends up happening. Again, I just hinted at it when I said be careful because my book is on Amazon. The statement that I'm making there is this.
well, why couldn't you put it on Gumroad? Why couldn't you put it on a smaller organization?
Because I didn't know about Gumroad at the time.
Well, there's other places than Amazon is what I'm saying.
I didn't know that. I didn't know I don't know what's out there. That's the thing. So there's a lot of learning I have to do in that area.
Yeah.
But my point.
What I'm talking about is decentralization. Amazon is centralized.
It is. It is.
And, it's like an antitrust law. And that's what I'm saying in terms of these giant corporations. They're too big. They're too centralized in terms of wealth. I'm not talking about communism. I'm not talking about the mask of communism, which is being a social democrat.
Social democrat, right?
I'm talking about there are some giant businesses that have been helped by the government, propped up.
Oh yeah.
That are keeping other businesses
Right.
in the shadow. And Amazon doesn't do anything that unique. All they do
I understand.
is they offer a platform for you to host things.
Right.
Okay?
Okay. Well,
But we're too dumb as citizens to say, oh, well, there's a special platform just for hosting books. We want it all from one place. We don't want to go to 10 websites. We want to go to Amazon. We want the convenience. But from that convenience factor, what we're doing is we're shooting our neighbor inside their livelihood. We're killing off our neighbors. Because
I can see that. And I've been saying that for years, actually. But I'm not. Here's the thing. I wasn't actually aiming for this to be an anti-Amazon episode.
I wasn't either.
But and I've been seeing that for years too. Is that on Amazon, enough people can buy enough on Amazon that the economy is suffering, and then when COVID hit, it was basically a catalyst for that suffering. But my statement is that be careful when you judge others, because you can't say for certain that if you were in that position you wouldn't do the same thing or worse.
Well, I think that
And if
absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Right. If
and
I were-
when people get to that point,
Right.
we need to cut them down.
I would love to
They're not gods.
I would love to say that if I were Jeff Bezos, I wouldn't do the things that I disagree with that he's doing. I'd love to say that, but I can't and I won't, because I don't know. I'm not in that position, and I didn't walk through his shoes. I didn't go through the things that he went through. But my point is, you can't just tear shit down for the sake of tearing it down.
That's not what I'm
You
proposing.
You have to have a way to rebuild it, or a way to replace it.
What,
And if you don't
I'm
have-
saying is, if I don't say Gumroad enough times on our show, and I don't say fuck Amazon enough times inside my life, then what I'm doing is facilitating all of the resources to be given to that one place.
Not necessarily. I don't
Yes,
think so. I don't think
because what I need to do as a public figure is say there are other places where you can get the same thing. It's just as easy.
so. Right. Well, see, I would say that, but I don't think that's.
And
I don't think that's. I don't,
There's a reason why you should go to those other places, because there's a consolidation of wealth over
Right.
here. This guy has too much power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Let's
And-
take away
and-
some of his power and let's go over here. That's what I'm saying. He is the pop singer that's put out 10 hit records and they're all sounding the same. So let's try to listen to someone else right now. Let's give someone else a chance.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I think that it's necessary to draw attention to the alternatives. I don't think it's necessary to curse the guy that's gotten too big, because I think here's the thing. Attention is survival. Grant Cardone. Okay. The reason that a lot of these newer alternatives are not as big as the guy that already struck it big, case in point. People hear about Parler now on Facebook,
Right.
and of course, all they want to do is berate it, because this is where all the crybaby conservatives want to go. Whatever you want to say, the truth about Parler is this is where anybody who wants to have the right to speak their mind goes, and it doesn't matter if you're a conservative or a liberal. Okay, they will allow you to speak.
You can also
But-
just post pictures of your cat on
You can do
Parler.
whatever. Yeah, you
and
can do
just
whatever.
know that your
The only difference
your
is
cousin,
Right.
that sometimes spews some crazy stuff, is allowed to spew his crazy stuff.
Exactly, and it doesn't matter that what you post on Amazon. I mean, thanks for the Amazon thing. On Parler or Nebu2 or Minds, these other social media
Or
forms
float.
that will not censor you,
Yeah.
as Facebook has continued, as Facebook and Twitter and Instagram are censoring you, right? But I don't think that it's necessary to go fuck Facebook, fuck Twitter, fuck Instagram, and this and this and this and this and this. How horrible things are. I don't think that that's useful. I think it's more useful to say these are some other platforms you can use. Because I think that what ends up happening is when we start getting into this idea that we need to
Well, we need to
bring
recognize what's wrong with these previous
Right,
platforms. And what
bringing
you're talking
neg-
about, in one sense, is censorship. So,
Yeah, and
you
so
can say fuck censorship.
Well, you can say fuck censorship because now you're saying fuck the behavior instead of fuck the people.
Okay.
Right? And I think that that's more useful. I think that that's a little bit more useful. I think it's more to say it's better to have a problem with behavior than it is to take out frustration on the people that are engaging in it. Because what ends up happening at that point is all you're doing is you're creating more division. You're becoming a part of the problem. You're becoming a part of the suffering that is inherent with life, rather than trying to solve that suffering and saying, you know what, there's an alternative over here. There's something else to think about. Here's another solution to this problem. We got a problem with overreach on Facebook and censorship and mind control and thought control. Excuse me, not mind control, thought control on Facebook. Go to Nibu2. Go to mine. We don't like something Jeff Bezos is doing. Gumroad, right?
Right.
Which I didn't even know existed until you brought it up. So don't get mad at me.
I'm not. Or eBay.
Or eBay.
eBay's or Bonanza, Etsy. There's all kinds of different places where you can.
I haven't thought about Bonanza in a long time.
Purchase things, but the big picture on here is like there are people like Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook. And if you want to just talk about the behavior of Mark Zuckerberg and not tear down
the man,
the man,
because the man is behaving in a very evil manner. But if all you're going to do is say the man is evil, you got to remember you're evil too.
I don't care if I'm evil.
Okay.
I mean, sure, I'm evil. That's fine. I got a dark side, a shadow, just as much as anybody else. But at this point in time, he could do more damage than I can do.
That's
much
fine.
more, right? So I think we're splitting hairs when we're like, let's talk about the character of the man versus the man. The man is a threat. Okay. He's a threat to our to the globe. I mean, he's a threat to for our country. Freedom of speech. He's a threat to our democracy for actually he's one of the main reasons why the election went the way that it went.
Oh yeah.
Whether you are happy with the results or not, there should be a social media platform.
Social media shouldn't have anything to do with the voting. That's the thing. And I think that that goes into what I just said about overreach.
Right.
Is that they are trying to
I know we're not trying to be judged
into absolutely every aspect of any form of control that this current world system has. They're trying to become a part of that, and I think that much of that does have to do with the CIA involvement with Facebook. But is it CIA or FBI? I've forgotten.
Probably Mossad, CIA, FBI. Probably all the intelligence is probably connected to. But I mean, there's good players, bad players. We could talk about white caps and black caps.
Right, but there was one specific agency that got involved with them, and I don't remember if it was CIA or FBI. But the point that I'm making is this: is that their involvement in it has made it reach too far into people's lives, where everything is about Facebook now. I remember when it was. I remember when it was new.
Yeah.
I remember when we were on MySpace and Bolt. I was on Bolt.com, one of the first social media sites. And now there is no Bolt.com. Now Bolt.com is some other deal. But
I never heard of that one.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I heard of PeerSpace.
Oh yeah, PeerSpace. Wow, I'd forgotten about that one.
I think that was one of the first, and I was definitely on MySpace. That went kicking and screaming the whole time with social media. I hated the whole idea.
And I didn't like it either initially, but then I started to recognize something probably about 8 years ago, that social media was going to become the backbone of commerce. And so instead of keeping my friends list small among just the 4 or 5 people that I knew, I grew it because attention is survival, right? And drawing more attention to yourself can be useful in the realm of business if you're going to get into that realm. But,
which we all have to. Kind of.
We all have to. But going back to what you were talking about earlier about it's unwise not to start your own gig, and I think that that's a very true statement. It's unwise not to start your own gig. But thing is, I mean, if you're working at Walmart, you can almost ask anybody who is working there. They're also on food stamps, so they got the money, right? But here's the thing: so you got the money coming in for your needs on the food
That's
stamps. That's
not money, though. In who's the mind that's money?
No. So as I was saying, you got the money coming in for your needs on food stamps,
sure,
right? And whatever additional you need, you can take a little bit from your paycheck, but then you need to use what you can get from your paycheck. And instead of going and getting the latest and greatest cell phone, going and getting the latest television, why not take that, set it aside, and go to use it for something?
Start a small business.
Right. Start an investment that will build you from there, because there really is a chance. You work at Walmart, there really is a chance that you can become the next Jeff Bezos. There really is the chance.
Not unless you know someone in intelligence. You're not going to become the next.
That's not
Jeff
what I'm
Bezos.
talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. But you see my point, though. There really is the chance that you can be highly successful, even if you're just starting in Walmart or starting in Home Depot. There is the chance, and it's just a matter of.
I mean, I think that
we're not being taught that. We're not being taught that in schools. We're not being taught that by our parents, and we're not being taught that by our bosses.
Well,
Our bosses are not taking a personal interest in their employees anymore. Now you're just a number, and that's a problem.
That all goes back to, well, one, I do believe in just doing stuff. I had 35 plus jobs, and I just sometimes got a job so I could put some money inside my pocket, and it was part of my evolution. I just need to do something, and you get the short end of the stick enough times, you're eventually going to want to be the one that's giving out the sticks, right? So I do believe that you got to start somewhere, and it's good to have a job. I do feel like the opportunities online right now are a lot stronger, and
if you took some of your paycheck and you put it toward an online business, I mean, here's the thing: is you put it toward an online business versus a brick and mortar business or a local business.
I just think where we fundamentally disagree is I think that there could both be this idea of being, it's kind of like an old school conservative point of view, pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps and making something.
I don't think that
and becoming your own person inside this world. And I think you need to. You got to have some sort of vision, even if your vision is to make $28,000 a year and move into a small town where that's decent money and start a small family. Like, that's a beautiful vision. I think that's you have to have that. Yeah. That's important. But we could also be capable human beings that can envision and have the power to envision whatever we want and create the life that we want and live in a system that's rigged against us at the same time. And that's the thing. It's definitely possible
it's rigged against us, absolutely. But it's definitely possible to take advantage of it and use that, I think.
Right.
And I don't believe that.
So you're on the don't hate the
don't hate the player, hate the game. Exactly.
Right.
That's
what I'm saying.
My thing is this. I don't think that hard work alone is ever going to get you anywhere. And I can tell you that because of my personal experience. I worked my ass off.
I agree.
Hard work alone is not enough. No. Yes, there is a level of luck that is required, but that's the thing. Is it
also vision?
Vision, where my people.
It's probably more important than anything.
Where there is a lack of vision, the people perish. Yeah, that's another scripture. Is it? Yeah, you have to have a vision. You got to have a set goal. You got to come up with something, and you got to be creative. You got to have a form of luck, and you got to work hard at the persistence.
Exactly. So you got vision, you got persistence, and then you're willing to adjust. Your ego isn't just
Exactly.
going to get in your way.
Take the lumps and keep going. Perfect example. There was I posted on Facebook. I've been pushing my book anywhere that I can, and I posted it in a group on Facebook, and that has in its rules, do not try to sell your stuff here.
Okay.
Well, I didn't realize that was one of those groups.
Yeah.
And all anybody wanted to do, well, one guy mocked a comment that I made about the book, and I ignored it. Take your lumps and keep moving. Then another guy took a very aggressive tone toward me about that now I have to justify my actions. These are not moderators or administrators of this group. And, I answered just the statements. And then he finally pointed out that it was against the rules. Oh, okay. Then the next thing, somebody trolled me about my Christian belief. I'm like, okay, take your lumps and keep moving.
Right.
But you don't have to fight every little battle.
No.
And I think that actually, people get bogged down into fighting every battle rather than focusing on a goal. They can have a great idea, a highly creative idea that can go really far, but they're not focused on their goal, and they start fighting every battle, which I talked about once before, is that we get stuck in this, we got to deal with this obstacle, we got to deal with this opposition, we got to deal with that person. Instead of focusing on our goal, just keep moving, right? And eventually you'll get there, because the obstacles and the oppositions are going to come, and the purpose of them is not to stop you.
Yeah.
The purpose of them is to make you stronger so that you can face them, because what's coming is going to be a lot harder than these little oppositions.
I don't know. I don't necessarily agree that what's coming is going to be a lot harder. I think that as humans, we always try to assign purpose to the challenges. And I think most of the challenges are, created in our own mind.
Now, by what's coming, I mean by what's coming down the path of this particular individual. I don't mean what's coming nationally.
I totally understand. So what you're saying is all of this criticism is just preparing you for, further criticism inside the future.
Well,
or whatever it's
preparing you for. It's preparing you for hardship that right now you can't handle. You have to be able to take the lumps.
I think it can be. I don't know. I don't know if it's got to be hardship, because I think that's a flaw in your thinking, it's just going to create more hardship. I think that may be.
No, you're going to face hardship. That's part of life. You're going to face hardship. It's just a matter of
how do you know that the hardship that you're going to face inside the future isn't. How do you know you haven't already faced the hardest things that you're here to face inside life? Maybe the rest of your life is to experience joy and to experience success. And the hardship that you've had inside the past is the deepest hardship that you've ever felt in your life. Maybe it doesn't get worse. Maybe it just gets better. And that happens to a lot of people, believe it or not. Sometimes people experience their darkest moments in the beginning. And then they move on to a life that just
to be able to move on to the next thing. That's the thing.
Does it give them strength, or do they overcome those things and then just learn to accept the joy inside their life, the bright side of things? Because I think that when
you have a point. No, you have a point. It can humble a person to the point where. But here's the thing: is I have to be. What was it? Hope for the best, expect the worst. It'd be great if the rest of my life was the greatest years of my life. Mm-hmm. But I think that the hardships that I've faced in my life.
Personally, I'm done with hardships. I've had a lot of hardships inside my life, and I'm done with them.
I hate them. But the thing is that there's a lesson that needs to be learned in each hardship. And if I haven't learned it, then I'm going to go back to that hardship.
The biggest lesson I've learned is that I used to think too much about, this idea that I need to earn something. I need to earn my keep inside this world. Well, I've seen plenty of people walk right into the good graces of this planet and just live a charmed life.
Right.
But because things started off hard for me, I've had this consistent idea that everything I'm doing is building the character that I need to have in order to become the man that I need to become, and I'm becoming this person where the more I just accept myself for who I am, and sure, I get better at stuff because I participate.
Yeah.
Not because it's a hardship I need to endure, but because I become more of a participant inside life.
Yeah.
I've already done the hard work. The hard work was, failing and failing and failing and failing.
I think that there are going to be some
and losing people.
Yeah.
And
I think that as we get further down the line, you see how things are right now.
yeah.
Right. I think that there's going to come a time when things are going to get really, really difficult for us as a nation and for us as individuals. And I think that those that we see, as you pointed out, that just step into the good graces of life and just go, and they don't have any hardships and everything's fine with them, they're going to be the ones that suffer more than you or me, because we've been through enough hell in our lives that it's going to be like a walk in the park for us. And I think a lot of folks are going to have that experience, is that dichotomous experience where you're going to have, my neighbor is going to go through, when all the shit hits the fan, they're going to go through hell. And me, I'm just going through another day.
Yeah.
And I think that I
understand that mentality, but I will present to you something I've seen before inside life. You take a rich kid that was hardcore drug addict, fell far from grace, and you put him inside a rehab with a occasional drug user that got caught doing drugs inside the car because they're homeless.
Right.
Now this rich kid grew up with the idea of wealth and that things that were going to be all right for him. I've seen these people come out and into rehab, and I've seen that rich kid that was much more like sunken in and much more unhealthy and mentally unfit adjust to life better than the person that had this, 1,000 dark
homeless.
nights of the soul. I just got caught doing drugs to kind of kill a little bit of pain.
Yeah.
And it's because that rich kid had one problem, and that was they were doing drugs and maybe the psychological issues behind that is they didn't get the attention that they needed, but then they find love inside recovery and they're good to go.
Or support.
Where that
the homeless
guy,
he didn't have any support.
He gets sober and gets a little bit of support, but the support isn't enough because fundamentally there's another issue that's there, and the issue is that this guy never really believed in himself. And I feel like that belief in self is such a silly thing because we should all have it. And
will you be surprised?
Well, no, I'm not. I'm not surprised because I've been the guy that's the homeless guy inside the car that didn't have the belief inside himself.
Yeah.
That belief in yourself is a silly thing because people have it that you would think don't deserve it.
Right.
And then there's other people that don't have it that you think really, really should have it. But it's really just a choice. It's one of the most simplest things to obtain.
I don't know about it being always a choice, because here's the thing, is that I think a lot of that also has to do with habitual, or the habit of the way that you think, because...
Oh, yeah, it definitely does.
It's not necessarily...
Do you decide that you need to earn that yourself, or do you just accept it?
I grew up having to earn approval.
Yeah.
And earn trust and earn love and earn all this other stuff. And here's the funny thing about earning it is that you never earn it.
Never do.
In those situations there, if you have to earn the trust of your parents, if you have to earn the approval of your parents, you have to earn the love of your parents, then what ends up happening is that that one mistake is worth 1,000 good deeds. And so you're never worth anything to them.
Right.
And so you grow up not believing in yourself because you have no successes in your past.
Right.
And so,
and the easiest success is just a parent giving you approval.
yeah, well, it should be the easiest success. It should certainly
unless
be.
it's taken away from you.
Right.
If you're denied that, then you're set.
Well, but see, here's the thing: is if it's taken away, then that means that there's a possibility you could get it back. But here's the thing. Me personally, I have no successes in my past, none whatsoever. Right? But part of the book, of writing this book, was about understanding what it is about believing in yourself. Part of believing in yourself is you have to be able to understand who you are in relation to your past. The things that happened to you in the past, what did they create? Right? Now you have to look at the past strictly factual, without allowing any emotion to be stirred up by it. And then you speak, that's discovering your identity. To see what has happened to you and what it has created. Mm-hmm. Being able to look at not just the scars on your body,
right,
but to look at the calluses that it has created. The ability to face the next dart, the next knife, the next pain, right? Now you speak death to the effects, the emotional effects of the past on your present, and this is where people get stuck. And they get stuck here, and because they're stuck here, they can never step into their identity. This is the declaration of the identity. And what ends up happening here is that, in the case of the individual who gets stuck in the car, and he's homeless and he's got caught doing drugs, right? And he doesn't believe in himself.
Right.
He knows what he went through, but he's not able to recognize the calluses in the scars. He's not able to recognize how those scars have actually toughened him and raised his pain tolerance level, to the point where he can face the next one. The thing people don't understand is that
the thing that guy doesn't understand is he's trying to pivot into the next dart instead of walking into the light of sunshine.
Let me show you something. The thing that people don't understand is that the chance of an individual actually being here is astronomically impossible.
Yeah.
Okay? You had to outswim 14 million other swimmers.
Right.
Right? And then the chances of you making it 9 months. Right? Add to that the chances of the mom and dad actually meeting. Mm-hmm. Right? Add to that the chances of mom and dad's ever actually meeting. Right?
Right.
Your chances of existence are non-existent, are gone. You made it through that. And then you also made it through the hell that you went through after you were born. And you're still here. That means you're one tough motherfucker. The question is, are you willing to look at yourself that way? Are you willing to look at the suffering that I went through was necessary? Because life is hard. And I'm going to have to contend with life. And if I can do that, if I can look at that and I can go, okay, what I went through was hard, but it turned me into this. This is my identity. Now I speak death to the emotional effects of the past on my present. My dad disowned me at birth. He tortured me. I grew up with duct tape on my mouth, and that's why I can't wear a mask. PTSD. But the emotional effects of the things that he did, those are dead right now. Okay? This way I can step into my future going, I know I can take whatever's coming. Whatever comes, I don't know what's coming. But whatever comes, I made it this far. I was a slave for 6 years. I had an abusive family. And going back even further than that, I should be dead.
Yeah.
This right here, now I can step into the future. And this, I think, is the belief in the self. Is you can't believe in yourself if you have not developed a habit of thinking like that. And you have to be shown that sometimes.
I think some people have a harder time believing in themselves, and some people have an easier time believing in themselves. Mm-hmm. I've had a harder time believing in myself. Mm-hmm. My sister has had an easier time believing in herself.
And I think a lot of that also comes from how we're treated as kids.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, if you're given reason to believe in yourself, you'll believe in yourself easy.
Well, it all starts inside the mind, and if if you start off believing inside yourself, it's going to be hard to break that habit. If you start off where every action that you make is challenged,
Yeah.
then you're going to treat life like a challenge. Everything is going to be a challenge.
Always beating your head against the brick wall.
Right.
But here's the thing. The numbness helps me to cope.
The numbness helps you cope.
And what ends up happening after beating my head against the brick wall enough times is that I can handle the next one. But there comes a point where you have to go, okay, I'm beating my head against a brick wall. There's a door over here.
Yeah.
Right?
It's interesting that
Everybody else can see that
as a young
door.
man, being someone that wanted to pursue a career inside hip hop, at least when I was growing up, it might be different now, but in order to become a rapper that was respected, the worse your past was,
The more respect you
the
get.
more respect that you would get. You'd have better stories of things you've overcome. And then...
Because you overcame them. That is where the respect was.
Right. And then, you would therefore, I guess, have a story to show younger men, sometimes very slightly younger,
And sometimes older.
and sometimes older, on how to overcome these difficulties inside life and keep a strong mind and become successful. And that has been was the blueprint to become a rapper when I was younger.
Yeah.
Things have changed. It's not so much the same. I kind of like that rites of passage. Actually, it was pretty interesting. But what I also found out as I was taking more lumps, as I was taking more failures, and my life became more and more difficult, was that there was a point in time where more difficulty did not create a better chance for success. It actually started to create more of a detrimental chance for success because I had no studio to record in because I was living inside my car.
Nobody wants to hear you unless you already have money.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so then I was like, oh,
These days, if you're not rich, you can't make any money.
I gotta stop this journey of having the toughest, roughest story because I'm just going to end up an old man who has bared a lot of uncomfortable circumstances versus what I wanted and what I intended was to be someone who has overcome a bunch of circumstances and then became successful and then had the celebration. I want people to celebrate my hardship.
Better a poor man with honor than a rich man because he gave up his integrity.
Sure.
Better to be poor with honor than to be honored for giving up your integrity. And I think that there comes a point where I think I would rather look at myself in the mirror and have some pride than have some pride in the fact that I didn't give up my principles and I didn't give up my honor for the sake of a little praise and a little money, than to look at myself in the mirror and have to constantly shut down that voice that says, look what you gave up. Look at the sacrifices you made. They weren't good. Because the sacrifices that you made were, you sacrificed your character for some cash.
Sure, that's a possibility. I mean, if someone might have...
You're probably in a better position now than you would have been.
If someone would have came over and said, hey, here's some money to change your character, maybe I would have changed my character
then.
Then.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's really true. There's opportunities that I had that I closed because of my own I just didn't think it was a good fit for me. I didn't feel like, that was the dream. The dream wasn't to become someone else's perception of what makes me special.
Yeah.
It was to show what I think makes me special.
Yeah.
And that
Eventually,
but the point of the whole story about the blueprint of becoming a rapper and then enduring that and then waking up to an idea to the idea that that's not it. You have to also have that success story at the end. Was that I had spent so much time building up the calluses. I had built so much time becoming this warrior and just surviving the battles that I couldn't connect to the success story.
You start to wonder if those battles were really worth it. Is that the success story that's for me?
Or you start to lose track of the goal, which the goal is the success, and you just become more of a your habitual and your life path starts to become more of a warrior.
Yeah.
Than
a conqueror.
Than a conqueror.
Yeah.
Sure.
You're more of a conqueror than an occupier.
More than a warrior than
you
conqueror.
start to love the war. You start to love the war and forget about the occupation. Because eventually what ends up happening, so here's the thing, you just conquered this city. This goes back to, again, what I was saying about, destroyers must destroy. You get so used to conquering this challenge that you can't wait for the next challenge to conquer, and the next challenge to conquer, and the next challenge to conquer. And you start to realize, wait a minute, I left my success back there. That's where I was going to be.
Right.
Right. And you didn't have to conquer all of these other things. And like you said, you lose sight of the goal. And before long, the goal's behind you now. Now you have to go backwards.
Now you got to go backwards.
And it's not useful.
And that's what I had to do. I had to go backwards. I had to find out, what do I really want from all of these
Battles.
And then what I want is actually boring to somebody like me.
Yeah.
What I want is...
Because you've gone so far past it now.
I want comfort. I want comfort. I want success. I want something stable. And that goes against everything that I've been doing for the last 20 years of fighting. Yeah,
because
exactly. You're inviting resistance. You're inviting more battles. You're inviting more wars. So then it's like, well.
And now think about this. Think about how many people are still facing all those wars and don't even realize they're the ones inviting them.
Right. And then it's to me it's the same idea of the soldier that re-enlists, to the army. Yeah. Because once they get home and they got their retirement, they're financially fine. They start to drink and
they're dealing with the PTSD from the battles. Yeah.
Yeah, they're dealing with the PTSD from the battles and they just don't know how to behave. Thank God for my wife because she likes comfort. But, I find myself thinking I almost enjoy just as much eating the same box of macaroni and cheese, for as long as I can stretch it out. Yeah. As I do eating a gourmet meal. Yeah. Because I've gotten so into the endurance of the fight.
Yeah, exactly. The suffering of what the struggle and the perpetuation of the struggle. But after a while, you got to remember that it's no longer necessary.
It's no longer necessary.
Exactly. There's a guy.
How do you build versus just destroy?
Yeah, or how do you stop building and start living? That's the thing.
There you go.
There was a guy who very similar to what you just described. The soldier who doesn't realize that he's home and there's no more need to fight. There was this guy who was out on the road with his 3-year-old child in the back seat of his pickup truck, and somebody offended him on the road, and the guy pulls up next to him. He rolls down the window, says something to him, and then within seconds pulls out his gun and is pointing it at him and is chasing him down the road. His kid's scared to death. I want to go home. I want to go home. I want to go home. And it eventually came out that this guy had just gotten back from the battlefield, and in his mind, he was still on the battlefield.
Oh yeah.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing that I thought was an interesting twist to individuals like that is that on the battlefield, they're totally relaxed. Everything's cool. They don't experience the PTSD symptoms. It's when everything's peaceful that they're experiencing that PTSD symptom. And I think that what's happening in a situation like this, and I'll digress in a second, I think that what's happening in a situation like this is that they're expecting something to come from anywhere because it's too peaceful.
Oh yeah.
But digressing, going back, there comes a point where, you got to stop fighting, got to stop building, and start living. Because eventually what you end up with is again, you've created more strife than was necessary. Our purpose is not to fight constantly. Our purpose is in reducing the suffering. And if that reduction of suffering requires a fight, we have to be able to face it. But at a certain point, once that suffering has been reduced, any further conflict only adds to the suffering, adds to unnecessary suffering.
Right.
You see, and so I'm perfectly good having a gourmet meal versus a bag of chips, but at a certain point, the struggling's got to stop. Otherwise, I'm going to perpetuate it unnecessarily. And I become the problem rather than the solution.
Well, I think that's an interesting place to end. So yeah, guys and gals, if there's any of
and
you
folks
that listen, please leave a comment. Let us know what you thought about our rantings and ravings.
Are yelling at each other over here on the microphone today? No, if you enjoyed the discussion today, leave some comments. Even ask us a few questions or give us something to think about for the next episode. You can contact us. You can email us. We don't have an email address, do we?
Oh, we do, yeah. It's reasonabledissentpodcast@gmail.com. I guess I should start leaving that inside the description. It's on our YouTube channel. Though.
Yeah.
If you really, really want it, you can find it. But yeah, anyway, we appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Have fun.